Welcome to the Indian Gaming Association's The New Normal webcast. My name is Lisa Johnson, and I'm the conference manager for the Indian Gaming Trade Show and Convention. I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips before we get started. Everyone is muted by default except for our speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question or chat box and they'll be brought up at the end. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Victor Rocha, conference chairman of the Indian Gaming Association.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The New Normal, your go-to source for insightful discussions on the gaming industry and critical issues affecting Native American tribes across the United States. I'm Victor Rocha, the conference chairman for the Indian Gaming Association. My host, Jason Giles, had a family emergency this morning, and unfortunately, he can't be here, but he sends his regards. Someone in his family got sick. He says they're going to be okay, but they had to go take care of business. Today's guest is my friend, James Siva, chairman of California Nation's Indian Gaming Association. Chairman Siva, welcome. Chairman Siva has graciously accepted my invitation to come back and continue our conversation, the latest attempt at California mobile sports betting. Welcome back, Chairman Siva. Lots to talk about since you were last here, man.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for having me back, Victor. I'm always glad to join.
Well, you know what? You always say yes to, which I really appreciate too. So it's not, it's always important to not just talk about the issues, but to make sure we have the right people talking about the issues so that, I think everybody that does sign up to attend these conversations wants to get to hear what leadership has to say and to get to the close to the truth as possible. So we're always doing that. So again, last time we talked, lots going on. I guess the main one is that it looks like there is some motion on this initiative. The California AG cleared the way for the sports betting initiative to move forward. And then last week, and according to reports, that signature gathering was supposed to begin over the weekend. I'm a shut-in, so I don't normally get to see people or signatures and stuff like that. And I just figure shoot by them anyhow if I do see them. But do you know if the signature gatherers are out yet? Have you seen them?
I haven't seen them personally, but we received the same reports that signature gathering was going to start once they received title and summary, which they did, which was not unexpected. We thought that would happen and they would move to at least this stage. But I haven't seen any signature gatherers personally. If they do appear, I think it'll be in the next week or two.
Yeah. Well, you know what? They have so much time to get it done. So what is they going to need? 874,641 signatures, or according to my math, what we would do, we'd probably look at that at about 1.3 million signatures that you're going to need to get this done. There's been some great reporting out there. I think you got to give credit where credit's due. I haven't seen a lot of coverage in the mainstream media, but the trade industry, Jill Dorson, Matt Cradell, Mike Mazzio, and a bunch of them are doing some really incredible jobs in interviews. I've sent those guys emails, although I do have their cell phones and I haven't called them, but I have sent them emails inviting them on there, but I don't think they want to come on here with me. It would be one of those YouTube videos where somebody sticks their hand in the lion cage. You know what I mean? Where next thing you go, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But
the three you mentioned are really great journalists. I've worked with all three of them, and I think they do a very fair job reporting, which is, all I always ask for is just to be fair. You don't have to always agree with my opinion or side with tribes, but if you were a fair reporter, I'll return your calls. Maybe not every single one, but I'll try.
Yeah, no, they're doing a great job. And they've been talking to those guys. And so that's allowed us to, have some type of communication. And I know you've had meetings with them. And so I guess the big deal now is that the signature gathering is going on, and there's been a big publicity campaign going out. They've the big one was a sport from a small group of tribes. You're seeing small, not necessarily small in size, small in the casinos and stuff like that, but normal height. I've seen some of them. But that I don't think that's been unexpected. I think that is, you always going to see tribes that feel, they want to try an alternative path and stuff like that. So, but from what I'm seeing, it just doesn't really move the needle one way or the other. I think it still doesn't,
Yeah.
but I think what's been funny to me has been to listen to the story change and the goalposts moving. I think that's the big one. And then I guess the other big news was yesterday, the announcement that the Sports Betting Alliance, our adversaries from last cycle, have said they're not going to get involved. And I think with the interview that I saw yesterday, Thompson was saying he expected more people to join this. When I say it's exactly what we predicted, less people are going to join. I mean, first of all, what do you think? Has your opinion changed at all of the bill or any of this?
No, I don't think my opinion has changed at all as far as the substance of the bill, the overall approach by the proponents of these initiatives. I think my opinion remains the same, that this is not a good move forward for Indian country. This is not the time for sports betting in California, probably more importantly. But as you mentioned, like, we expected there would be some tribes who might side with this group for various reasons, and I don't fault them for their decision making. That's their right as leaders for their tribes, as sovereign government, to do that. But I think we're very much finding ourselves in the same situation we were with Prop 26 and Prop 27, where we did have a handful of tribes on the other side.
Yeah.
And we try to remain friendly, and we never get confrontational. Those tribes who are involved with Prop 27 on the other side, many of them came to CNIGA meetings. There was never any kind of adversarial things that took place in the meetings. Everyone was very respectful, very friendly, moving forward. Because we understand, as tribal leaders, we don't know the realities of our other tribes. We come together and we speak about issues that affect all of us, but our day-to-day lives are very different. And so I don't fault them for the decision that they've made. I still believe that ultimately these initiatives are destined to fail. I think that was the reality from the beginning. So part of it is, it didn't really ever matter what was in the initiatives. While there is a lot of things that are just not well thought out, poorly constructed in the initiatives, aside from that point, which would be enough to oppose on its own, you have to look at the reality is, you have to get the California voters to approve it. And if they're not ready to approve any sports betting initiative, don't put forth a bad one. I mean, you don't want to lose on a good one where you do have tribal support, but going forth on losing on a bad one and showing that there's starting to, have that division between tribes, it's going to make it so much more complicated, so much more expensive when tribes do come back and want to push something for sports betting in California.
Well,
And
it feels very cynical because, last time it was about homeless people. Now it's about small tribes. And, it really is about, I feel that these are issues that are going to be addressed going forward, because this is a new generation of gaming. And I think, when it's land-based gaming, the tribes that were fortunate enough to be closer to population centers were the beneficiaries of tribal gaming in California. And I think going forward, we want to share the bounty with the tribes and the people of California, by the way. It isn't just so. I think these are issues that were going to be addressed going forward anyhow. They're just being exploited, you know what I mean, to create division, and to always to make the tribes look bad. But I think in the unity of CNIGA and the unity of the vote, you see that this is the path forward. I've always felt, and I still feel, that cannabis should be part of this issue. You know what I mean? This is, a lot of these tribes are rural, and this has always been something they've been asking for. So I think they are in a really good position going forward. That's why the 4 tribes going off with a bad idea, which is destined to fail, doesn't make any sense. It's like running out to the desert to go look for water. It's like, no, the water's over here. The deal is over here. We all work together. So, I have a lot of opinions about this thing, but so what are the current concerns with CNIGA regarding the sports measure?
I think our major concern is that this can kind of start to see that division grow within the California tribes here. It's been a lot of work the last couple of years to try to keep us together. Even during Prop 26 and 27, when you did have, multiple opinions and viewpoints on it, at the same time, we were able to grow our membership. So I think that shows that we're doing a good job of, having those important conversations in the room, allowing every tribe who's a member to have a voice, and to come in for a place for information, for discussion. CNIGA doesn't make the decisions for Indian country. That's up to individual tribes to do. What we strive to do, and what I strive to do, is to provide that platform to have those conversations, to provide the information from, as unbiased a position as we can. But that's the ultimate goal of the association. And, looking at the 4 tribes and some of the media that's been done on this, very much puts to the forefront the issue of the RSTF tribes. And, the RSTF was created way back in the 90s when gaming was first starting here. And that was an agreement to have revenue sharing for all tribes in California, for all federally recognized tribes in California, which at the time was unprecedented. It goes outside of what is called for in IGRA. And in fact, a lot of tribes in a lot of other states were really critical of the decision that the California tribes came to come to that agreement. Because they're like, you're setting a precedent that's up here when what is in IGRA is, just simple, the right to participate, not the right to actually prosper from gaming, but just the right to offer gaming. And so California has always, tried to address that dichotomy of, big tribes, small tribes, even though all of us back then were small. But as you mentioned, a lot of it just dealt with where your land base was. If you were near a population center, you had that growth. And if you were a more rural tribe, you just didn't have the same opportunity. But that's just like a natural, development of an industry. It's the most important aspect. That's what they say in real estate. It's location, location, location. And so I don't think those tribes who benefited from that should be, vilified or anything as such. And also, I think we have to take into account that there are tribes who continue to either not be able to offer gaming, don't have the same success, and find a way to collaborate with them and work with them. But that should be tribe to tribe. We shouldn't be looking to outsiders who don't have our best interests and will never understand our history, our common history that we share. So that I think that's one thing that you see with these initiatives when they're put forth from a non-native entity, is you see tribes, move towards there because they're looking at, their tribe situation. They're looking at ways to improve the lives of their members. But at the same time, it starts to play into that division. And, we really got to figure out how to do this as a tribal community without looking at outsiders to lift us up.
My favorite part of this, what Casey Thompson keeps saying, he's like, listen, I took the language from San Manuel. You know what I mean? So I've taken your prayers, and I've taken your Indian songs, and listen, I'm an Indian too. You know what I mean? I'm going to lead you to the promised land. You know what I mean? And I'm amazed that people follow along, but it's destined to fail. It's going to fail. It's not going to win. There's no way it's going to win. So, it's a fool's folly, because it just moves the timetable further back. Now, I think the best case situation, if this thing just dies. Now, I'm already seeing a lot of mealy mouth replies coming back from that. Well, if it fails, and already I'm seeing an exit, and some of the language is starting to change. He's looking for his soft exit, which tells me And the thing that didn't make sense, and Daniel Salgado and I, who is or was the chairman of the Kuya tribe, he emailed me or direct messaged me and said, I'm going to represent this small group of tribes and we're going to go and do this. And I said, listen, you're going to fail with dignity. You know what I mean? If you're going to follow these guys, you're going to fail. You know what I mean? Because everything that he says is just fables. You know what I mean? And especially when you take the language of Samuel and saying, look I did your language. So follow me, Indians. I'm the Pied Piper of California, and I'm going to march all you Indians to Sacramento. And we're going to, you know what I mean? It's like one of the most insulting things ever, but yet here it is in the 21st century, isn't it?
Yeah. When they took that language, that's essentially what they tried to do, is say, oh, look, this had support of, 50, 60, 70 tribes.
All
so
you
we
Indians
can support. Be like, no, that's not how it works. It wasn't just the language of the initiative. It was it coming from a tribe that people trust, like Samuel, their approach, their outreach. All of these things came into building that support. It wasn't solely based on the initiative language. That was a big part of it. But even within their language, as they had it drafted, there were some issues here and there. But again, it's about the work and how you approach it. And their approach, like I mentioned earlier, was just a failure from the very beginning. The way they approached this, by not actively outreaching to tribes and then dropping this on us right at the end of the year with very little time to respond. I mean, they set themselves up for failure.
You know what? I mean, the timetable is, when we were talking about this in November, at October, excuse me, at G2E, we were like, the timeline was tight. You'd have to start tomorrow. Now they started last weekend. They have till June. I mean, the funny part yesterday was they talk about there's going to be a professional sports players now. So that's the thing now, is professional sports players are going to be the incentive. Are there enough professional sports players to become signature gatherers? Is that the plan? They're going to start, you're going to see Shaq, collecting signatures at the Galleria in the Valley or something like that. Is that the plan?
That they might need that to get enough signatures. But I think one thing that's going to make it just add another layer of difficulty on this, and you mentioned it earlier, is the fact that the other corporate coalition that was, on the other side of tribes last time, they've also come out and saying this is not a good, this is not a good group, this is not a good initiative, and essentially saying that they side with tribes on this. Because I think they've had that interaction, they've learned their lessons, and now they're coming back and seeing if there is a path to sports betting in California, it begins and ends with tribes. I've said it over and over again. And I think they finally understand that. And so they're looking at the future and they're like, well, if the majority of tribes aren't in on this, we're out too.
It doesn't make any sense to get involved in another fight. It just, there's nobody has a stomach for it. And I think everybody has the same intent is to get sports betting into California in a way that is beneficial to everyone involved. And it doesn't, to have someone to come in like this is just is comical in this day and age. So it's destined to fail. And again, I'm seeing some real mealy-mouthed responses to it, which tells me they see it too. They expect it to fail. And they, when Salgado talked to me, it didn't make any sense to me why he would be teaming up with these guys to fail, because who cares? No, with disrespect.
Yeah.
Because when they're really going to have leverage is in the next cycle when everybody really wants it.
Yeah.
So, it just doesn't make any sense to me,
Yeah. And I know Chairman Salgado quite well. He's actually on our CNIGA executive committee, and has been for the last 4 years now.
He told me CNIGA does not represent the small voices. I could show you the texts and emails, man. I can show them to you. He said he doesn't represent it.
Yeah, I think That might be his opinion, and I would probably disagree. You look at the CNIGA membership, and almost half, about 40%, are RSTF tribes. And while that does not represent the majority of RSTF tribes by any means, to say that we don't speak on behalf of those tribes when that makes up nearly half of the CNIGA membership, I just think is, not true. It just can't be. You look at the numbers, it's not my opinion. It's just the reality of the tribes that make up our membership.
Well, listen, as somebody who was in the first wave in actually it's the second wave, in the late 90s and stuff like that, and watched, how the tribes made sure the smaller tribes were included and there was money. And you were absolutely right. Nothing had ever been done before. And everyone was like, you guys are insane.
Yeah.
And it California tribes have a history of taking care of each other, and I know that will continue and go forward. So to create this type of division, when something that's going to be defeated just tells me this is not the game. The game is ahead, and that really is when it's played. So I don't expect this thing to make the ballot. I mean, it could be, surprises have happened. I just think logistically, and the restrictions, the amount of votes, the time, I think the issue, it's going to be very difficult, so not impossible, but extremely, extremely difficult.
They definitely have an uphill battle ahead of themselves if they're going to go through the entire signature gathering process. It's a very difficult road for them. But, I don't know what to think of these guys. Like you mentioned, he's already trying to give himself a soft exit. He keeps moving that goalpost further and further back, but eventually you can't move it any further,
Yeah, well, I think everybody in the industry sees it and notices it. And I've yet to meet anybody that feels this thing has any real success to happen. So I guess where we're at now. So what is next with CNIGA?
So CNIGA, we continue to watch and monitor and see what this goes forth. And if they move forward and start actually gathering signatures, and looks like they're going to try to push, past that stage. We've had conversations about what our response would be. And I think it's going to be probably, along the lines of a, very calculated PR campaign. If we need to get to that stage, we're prepared for that. Try to be prepared for every scenario that we can, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. We remain steadfast in our opposition. We continue to voice that to the media, to legislators in Sacramento, to Governor Newsom office itself. So all the leadership in California is aware of where at least CNIGA's association stands. Several other individual tribes have sent letters out as well. So our position remains the same, but we're prepared if they want to take this as far as, trying to get it on the ballot. If we have to fight it, we will.
And what do you think that does for sports betting in California? Does that push the timeline back?
I think if it doesn't push it back an additional election cycle, it just makes it that much more difficult, that much more costly. You can only, go to the well so many times before you find it's running dry. And I think that's the danger with this is, the last two initiatives, they both failed by pretty wide margins. So, and now they were different, the situation was very different. But if we have that same situation happen again with those kind of numbers, it's not an impossible task, but it just makes it that much more difficult,
And expensive.
Yeah, and expensive,
Yeah. Wow. So 2 years, 4 years even?
Maybe 2 years, probably more likely 4 years. I know when is the Super Bowl scheduled to come back to California? Was it 2027? I know there was going to be a big push to get sports betting in before then.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But now it might not be till 2028.
which I believe is soccer is coming then. So
Uh,
maybe we could we could do NASCAR or something. I don't even, do they have NASCAR in California? I don't think they've
they
somewhere, I'm
they got rid
sure.
of that track. Yeah, they had one, but they got rid of it.
Yeah. So, I think, but I guess the big question is, for me, is that, is there even a place for these guys? What is their role going forward? Or is it one of the things that flames, like a cold sore and goes away? Or is it like, you know, you can just take a shot and it goes away permanent?
Hopefully you're the latter. Hopefully this group is not something that keeps trying to pop up and come back.
Inflamed. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about the conversation. I'm sure it's taken a really bad turn, and I'll stop. But you get my point.
Yeah.
And I think what's, it just delays the inevitable, which is when sports betting is going to happen in California. And the thing is, not to sound like a follower of Q, but there is a trust the plan. You know what I mean? There is a path. Follow the path. We will all make it together. But that's why, you got these guys like, Reeve Collins and Casey Thompson, who thinks they're geniuses. Listen, I'm going to take your words. I'll put it together. Follow me. We'll lead you to the promised land.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work on many levels, so, all right. James, I think we could go into this thing, and I think right now it would just be a lot of guessing, and I don't think that's doing anyone any good, especially if I start going off. I don't think that does anyone any good. But going forward, let me see if we have some questions over here. And I saw a couple questions. Gene Johnson has one, and Chris Cerroti has one too. Okay, Gene, has CNIGA gained any additional clarity into the nuts and bolts of this initiative? How offshore assets will be magically cleansed and delivered to the tribes with zero cost? Does it involve shielding offshore assets through tribal sovereignty? Now, that's a very good question. I actually have that in my notes, but I didn't get to it.
Yeah. And
Good question.
yeah,
Big question.
to Gene, that's exactly what the initiative aims to do, is use tribal sovereignty through our gaming commissions to take these illegal offshore assets, as they're calling them, and magically cleanse them from bad actors to good actors and allow them entry into the California market. When they're deemed, illegal, that's at the federal level. That's not a state issue. So it already puts, that potential, compact that they're pushing in their initiative up for federal review, whether it's DOJ, NIGC, to say even if tribes have the authority to do that, when it's a federal issue, that becomes very complicated. But that's the goal of that language, is to just magically run it through the tribes and they come out on the other end squeaky clean and ready to go into the California market.
Well, yesterday the SBA came out, Nathan Click came out and said it was 4 tribes. Let's see, I got them right here. FanDuel, DraftKings, Fanatic, and BetMGM oppose the efforts of the proponents. Now, talking with someone yesterday, a name came up that I hadn't heard in a while, which was Bovada. Have you heard the rumors of Bovada sneaking around in the background, possibly supplying money? Have you heard that one?
I haven't heard that one. No. Yeah.
I expect some gray money to come in. I expected, I thought it would be someone like Stake.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Out of Australia, which does, but Bovada makes a lot of sense. I'm online friends with Calvin Ayre. He no longer owns Bovada, but I guess we can always ask. But that kind of goes into what you were just talking about, offshore assets and the great cleansing, of these offshore gaming, which is, do we have that kind of power?
That's the question. And, it puts this whole process at risk, even if it does go forth. But even if we do we want to use that on these already illicit actors, on these bad actors? We built up such a reputation for regulation in our industry. I hear it all over the place that we claim, and I believe it, that tribal gaming is the most well-regulated industry in this country. Why would we put that at risk to deal with these guys, to deal with these already deemed bad actors, these illegal activities? Why would we put our reputation on the line for them.
Well, you know what? I hope they are there because it just makes our job even easier. You know what I mean? And proves the point which we believe, which is this is just a big scam to cleanse a lot of offshore guys and crypto guys and stuff like that. And you know, the whole thing just stinks from the beginning. We have a question to you from Chris Soroti, a good friend of ours, says the California Attorney General's office is also preparing a formal opinion regarding the legality of daily fantasy sports and their entirety under state law. What is CNIGA's position on fantasy sports and especially pick'em style games that have become so popular? And do you expect the state AG will ban fantasy sports and pick'em games? Very interesting question. This is a big issue in Florida right now too.
Yeah, so we were made aware of this in December. We actually had AG Bonta at a CNIGA candidate forum, and this issue came up and we discussed with him. We are formalizing our opinion and we will submit it. I think the deadline's the end of this month, so January 31st. So the association is working on an opinion on that. But our hope would be, continue to regulate, the gaming industry in California as according to law. So we'll wait to see what our official opinion is, and then we'll send that into the AG's office, and hopefully they take action. I found it quite interesting that, there's been a lot of different asks of different AGs over the last, decade, getting their opinion on, the illegal games at the card rooms and things like that. And we never got an opinion from them. But then something like this pops up. The request came from Senator Scott Wilk, and they immediately jump on it and are getting ready to issue an opinion. And to me, it seemed a little like they're picking and choosing topics that they want to give an opinion on, when tribes have been trying to get a formal opinion on the illegal games at card rooms for 2 decades. And it takes
Jerry Brown, Kamala Harris, I remember all of them, man. We couldn't get those
all those guys.
great liberal warriors, you know what I mean? And it's always funny when it comes to gaming how some of those guys won't move. I think the whole thing with Jerry Brown, and that's a basically a whole other show that we can go into. But this is a big issue. This is, I guess, the proverbial camel's nose under the tent. And also, the bigger issue is that, fantasy sports was the companies were the wolves in sheep's clothing to get into sports betting. And now sports betting companies are the way to get into online gaming. But it's interesting, in Florida, they're concerned that, FanDuel and DraftKings aren't being held to the same standards as some of these other companies and stuff like that. But here in California, this is an issue, and it would be interesting to see how this plays out and how this is going to affect the industry, because this is a lot of these young players like Better and stuff like that. A lot of these young companies, that's how they're looking to get into the industry, and they're looking to get into sports betting, and they are sports betting.
Yeah, and we were glad that at our special meeting that AG Bonta was willing to talk to us about the issue, and because as you mentioned, it's very much kind of that first step into that path to full online gaming, fantasy to online sports betting to full online casino. So yeah, we were glad to get that meeting with him and have that conversation and try to judge where he's currently at on the issue and use that to help our position later down the road.
Well, you know what, Chris, thanks so much. I hope we answered your question, and I think that's a really interesting issue here in California. I have a question. I didn't send you any list of questions because I figured we were just going to talk about it. But what do you think the future of California sports betting is going to be? Do you think, is it on path to be like what we planned before, to do land-based and then online, or is it, and that seems to be the issue with a lot of these companies, because it's just too slow.
Mm-hmm.
The process is too slow. What is your take on that?
I was fully a believer of the kind of incremental approach. You bring it in, you do it brick and mortar, establish that market, and then you grow online. And I think all these different efforts from these outside groups show that that path forward is going to be the path that provides the most protection for tribes moving forward. You know, bring it into the state, brick and mortar at tribal casinos, build up the market, build up that piece of the industry, and then open it up to online. I think it ensures that we have enough time to work out the agreements amongst tribes to come to a position that we can all, or most of us, agree on, because, you know, getting 100% agreement on anything is going to be impossible. But I still think that that's going to be the most protective path, but it's also going to be the slowest path. And as we, you know, if we lose an election cycle this upcoming year, and it sets us back, you know, we start to lose time. And so maybe we have to look at going after it all at one time. I think it makes it more complicated and you have to cover a lot more bases, but I don't think it's impossible. But I still believe, you know, the slower, more incremental path provides that higher level of protection for tribes.
And then, you know, to me, you know, also, you know, I don't think most people really truly understand or comprehend what you just said, because that is the crux of everything tribal in California, you know, which is the tribes have this exclusivity from one of the largest industries in the world and the potential gold mine, you know, and, you know, it isn't about sports betting, it's about online gambling. And the tribes have exclusivity and they're not going to give it up. So nothing is going to deviate from that path. And I think a lot of these distractions are just that, or attempts to deviate from this path. And you know, and eventually we'll all get there, just not at the speed that the industry wants. And, you know, because you're spot on. It's about protection. It's about the next generation, you know, and the industry. Well, I think, you know, I think the messaging yesterday from the SBA was very positive and welcomed. I think, you know, I think the last thing they want to do is get into another fight, nor do we want to get in a fight. There's a path forward. So again, I think this attempt by Eagle One is just a distraction, you know, and delays the inevitable, which will take a lot longer. And more importantly, it's going to damage the brand already, and already sports betting has mobile sports betting has a problem. And by the way, and if you look again and again and again, there's having more problems in its wake of problem gambling and addiction and stuff like that has to be addressed in the very beginning if you want sustainable gaming long term. These are the kind of issues, and so we have an opportunity to do it right the first time, and the tribes will do it that way. So, you know,
Absolutely.
all right. So we got a couple of people, Ari Fox and Dane Henderson. Nice to see you guys. Yeah, whatever. So you know what? Listen, it's I appreciate you coming here and giving a little clarity to this subject. I think somebody said this is about as clear as mud. And they were talking about, it was Brendan Bussman. Brendan Bussman said that it was about as clear as mud, you know, in his own inimitable way of speaking.
Yeah.
So, you know, listen, Chairman, I want to thank you very much. I think, you know, there's a lot of questions still to be answered. And I think the big one and the one in front of us that we need, and, you know, make sure we're focusing and not take our eye off the ball is, you know, this initiative and going forward. Again, even if it gets on the ballot, it's going to fail there. It's just going to cost us more money, and it delays any real attempt at getting sports betting in California.
Absolutely.
So, all right, sir. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. I will be calling you again. By the way, you're coming to London, and by the way, we will be talking about this in London. We'll be at ICE. So if you guys got nothing to do, travel to London. You can hear us talk over there.
Yeah,
we'll
great.
be talking.
I'm looking forward to that.
That's gonna be, you know, and by the way, I will be there. I will be talking to a lot of those sports betting companies while we're there and making sure they're allied with us and on our side. And you know, again, looking forward to that path going forward, just like everybody else. So again, Chairman, thank you very much. We appreciate.
Thank you so much for having me on, Victor. I appreciate it. And before we get off, Victor, happy
Yes.
birthday.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, today's my birthday. So thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. So, all right. Thank you, Chairman. Always good talking to you, man.
Pleasure.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon. And everyone, we'll see you guys next week too. Okay. Bye.